This is the CW Spiral, a podcast run by three survivors of the CW's colon in 2022. We're your hosts, Sabrina Reed,
Michael Patterson,
and Reed Gaudens,
bringing you history about the network and the WB, the latest news and in-depth Sporterville discussions of the best and messiest shows to ever grace the small screen. So this pod episode is a very special pod episode because we're two now. This pod has had its birthday and we're very excited. And we are going to launch into some news and then we're going to give some, behind the scenes information about how we came to be a trio for this podcast. But kicking things off, we did find out that SupermanAndLois was canceled by WB and not the CW, according to Brad Swartz.
It wouldn't be a special episode for us if there wasn't some bad DC news with it. Unfortunately, we kind of all saw that coming. I think we speculated about that last week, that perhaps the CW might not have been as involved in Superman and Lois's premature end as we thought. I know I did speculate that maybe the fact that season 4 is now going to be held to the TV season that season 5 should technically be airing in, maybe was the nail in the coffin, I don't know. But James Gunn did say this time last year that Superman and Lois had maybe 1 or 2 seasons left. We all hoped for the 2 because I believe one of the initial reports said Superman and Lois was envisioned as a 5-season story. So we all hoped that it would get there. But it's not totally unexpected because if there was a 5th season, it would air in the same year as Superman Legacy. And that's probably not what Warner Brothers want. As a DC fan, I have issues with that. Like, this is the same company that's going to have 3 separate Batman universes now on movies. And we'll have the DC Universe's Batman, we will have Robert Pattinson's The Batman, and we will have the Joker universe. Those 3 are allowed to carry on separately, but oh God forbid we have a Superman TV show. Don't like that. Don't buy it. It's the old Bat embargo that hindered the original DC years ago when Arrow couldn't use characters from the Suicide Squad. We thought we'd gotten over that. Apparently we're still here. It's unfortunate. I get they're trying to build a big universe altogether, but Superman and Lois is one of the highest quality television shows the comic book genre has ever produced, and I'm sure it'll end on such a high. It's just kind of unfortunate that it doesn't get that 5th season that it wanted.
It doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, and I mean this is no shade, but Superman and Lois doesn't have the visibility of the upcoming movie, so I'm like, how would it take away from the movie? Is my question. I'm like, it's not the most popular show on television. I would just objectively, and again, I don't mean this in a bad way. There's probably a decent amount of people that don't know it's even on. So I'm like, how is that hindering your movie from being successful when the people that watch the show are most likely the target demo for the movie and will watch anyway?
It's a question. The only thing I could think of would be that they don't want to be launching a Superman when I think it's pretty much accepted, with exception to those who really do love Zack Snyder's version of the character, that Tyler Hoechlin is the Superman of our generation. That's going to me as a fan, that's just going to be the case until I see David Cornsweat's version. And even then, we've been with Tyler longer. Well, I guess that's not necessarily true. We were with Henry Cavill longer, and I bless him, but no. But I think that might be the issue. They don't want to launch a Superman when those of us who have been tuning into the show, or at least paying attention whether they've watched it or not, like Tyler as Clark Kent. Well, both Clark Kent and in the role of Superman, which is a feat, because I think for some people they're like Clark, but they won't like their Superman, or they're like their Superman, but they're not really feeling their Clark Kent. For Henry's version, not really feeling either, but there are people who really do enjoy it because he looks the part more. But I don't know. That would be my guess. They just want to say goodbye to that universe so they can usher in.
You think to me too, because we had 3 different Spider-Men within the span of 15 years, and that all 3 of them were in the same movie 3 years ago. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's possible to have peace in the Superman world.
It is. And when James Gunn brought up the idea of the new DC universe going forward when he launched it last year, he did say there was going to be an Elseworlds bracket for projects that didn't exist within the DC universe. On that Elseworlds bracket, we had the Batman, Joker, Superman and Lois, and Harley Quinn the animated series. I think there's a fifth one I can't think of. The Batman Part 2 is coming out and it's going to be a huge success. So the Batman Part 3 will happen. Joker 2 is going to be a huge success, no doubt about it. And Harley Quinn was just recently renewed for a fifth season. So are we just threatened by the fact that there is another live action Superman out there and we don't want to directly compete? I don't understand why Superman and Lois couldn't have just gotten the fifth season as well. Like, it was ending, it had more days behind it than it did in front of it. Couldn't we have just given it another 10 episodes? By the signs of things, after slicing and dicing it, the CW would have been happy to keep it going for another season, which really does say a lot considering how Brad Schwartz has commented on like the viability of superheroes on TV and that era has come and gone and that superheroes belong on the big screen or that they belong on streaming. They're still airing a superhero show on network TV this season because they slashed and dashed the budget so much. I guess they could have done it for another season, but we'll never know. It's just kind of a shame that we got so close to the perfect send off and it still feels like it was cut a little bit short. I get it, it's business, but when this is the same business that, like I said, has three different Batman universes, questions should be asked.
Well, see, I don't like the comment about like they should be on the big screen. I feel like superheroes don't need to be on the big screen. I feel like that comment a lot of times comes from like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that they want big budgets for it. You don't have to do a big budget superhero show or television or movie. You're choosing to. Like it's not the same thing. I would get it if it was like inherent to the genre, but it's only inherent to the genre because and I love Marvel. I do. This is their fault. Like because you know the movies got more and more expensive. The graphics got more and more better. We started casting more and more famous people. Like you stop doing that, you won't have an issue putting a superhero show on television. Now I get sometimes it has to do with like the linear audience. But like as far as superhero television being dead, CW canceled it. That's the reason why it's dead. It's not even like it was like a dying art form. They just needed more freshness and probably less shows. But instead we've just gotten rid of it entirely.
Exactly. And like I remember reading that I think that the Flash's final season cost was between around 3 million per episode, which is a low budget compared to what the earlier seasons of the Flash cost. And the Flash's biggest issue in those final seasons was its writing. It was nothing to do with the budget. So those shows were still feasible on television and there was still enough of an audience tuning in and they were still successful globally. We could have made I hate to say it, but there is an era of superhero fatigue setting in, but it's only because the projects themselves have been a little lackluster. We can definitely make the superhero era go on for another couple of years, maybe even decades, if they handle it right. Big budget shows like what Marvel did with Secret Invasion, we don't need a $200 million TV show. That's unfeasible. That's unnecessary. And like you can damn sure bet that Superman and Lois did far better with a far smaller budget. So again, Warner Brothers certainly would have had the money to, and CW would have certainly had the money to do a fifth season of Superman and Lois as cut and dry as sliced and diced to within an inch of its life as season 4 is going to be. They definitely could have made it work. But again, it's like Brad Schwartz said, Warner Brothers or DC Studios doesn't want a competing Superman product in the marketplace. Don't really get it, but
all is not fair in art and commerce.
No, it's not.
This is not the birthday gift you wanted.
No, it's not.
Hopefully, like a better one is coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what? Manifesting. Mo, we would like a WildCard season 2 renewal for our birthday.
Yeah.
And
I'll
maybe
take that.
like a Superman and Lois season 4 sizzle reel.
Ooh,
yes. Start the promo early. Yeah.
Gotta aim high.
But speaking of our birthday, we did want to share with you guys how we came to be. And it started with a DM.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes. I, being nervous about doing a podcast, ran over to Reed's DMs and was like, Reed, what do you think about a CW podcast?
And I was like, oh, that sounds like a fun idea. Not thinking that like it was like a real thing that we were gonna do like right away. Which is funny. So it's like, oh, that sounds like fun. Goes back to work. And then Sabrina's like, no, I'm being serious.
And at first you were like, what about, I mean, I could be a producer. You weren't really sure
I know,
about joining the podcast.
I wanted to be the Roz Doyle of the pod. The not seen one, but I mean, you can't pass up talking about the CW. Especially when I was like, we need to get Michael on board.
Yes, because I had pitched it to Natalie, our queen, and she was all for it. And I, truthfully, Michael, I feel like I told you this. I was nervous to ask you because like you were like the comics person, and for a little bit of history of me at Fansided, I was briefly, you guys, a writer on Bam Smack Pal. So Michael was my site expert. This was before I started working for the company. Um, and I was like, no, because Michael's so cool. He's not gonna want to do our podcast. like he and but you know, got over that fear, went to go ask. And we asked at the same time, right? We hopped into a chat and was like, Michael, would you want to be a part of this podcast?
I don't remember.
I believe that is correct. I was just sitting away at my desk, this very desk, working away one night, and just got a DM from Reed and Sabrina, and that DM thread has never been closed since because we use it all the time. And just asking about if I wanted to join a CW podcast, and I remember thinking, like, they know me, I can be nervous and overthink things and be worried about things, and I just remember as soon as I thought it, my instant thing was yes, absolutely. Because if there's two people who I had got on with, but a lot, but didn't interact with enough, it was these guys. So I just really wanted to. I thought the idea of us like we all had opinions on the CW. Anytime that our team got together and chatted about wider things, the three of us would kind of slightly derail the conversation and talk about CW from time to time. So I was like, I'm getting to do this constantly. I was like, absolutely. And with with you guys, so yes, of course there was the whole, would I be good at this? Would I like doing this? And don't get me wrong, I've looked back at the first episode and thought, you've grown. You've definitely grown from there. But I mean, like I knew
It's
that was
not just you.
We all have.
But that was my hope. That was my dream when I got that message. I was like, we could do something with this, and we could just spend more time together and have fun. And like, so yeah, instantly I was like, yes, sign me up. When do we start? And Christmas happened, and then we got it off the ground. But like, we didn't know when we agreed to it or signed up for this that a month later we'd be calling history, because this was back when the CW was a normal network. It wasn't a normal network for much longer after that.
No, it's when we were dreaming it up. It was like we had so many grand ideas about how we were going to be following the roster because it was basically our conversations that we were already having on Twitter at the time, which is how we ended up. Besides, work, getting closer because we were talking during work and then we were tweeting after work about the CW, and the lineup was lineup. We were like, it's gonna be hit after hit after hit, and CW said, hold up, wait a minute.
It's going to be hit after hit after hit in a different way.
Yes. And that was such a after had brainstorming like from the moment we decided we were going to have a podcast and we got a green light to gearing up for our first episodes, we had already had a game plan. We were like we were going to be rocking with it, and to be a part of the CW's big era change as we are learning and doing a big era change ourselves was an interesting period of time. Fun and sad, but interesting.
We didn't know we would be historians.
I know. People will look back on our early episodes and like, oh, they were so naive, hoping for the best. But it was wild those first couple of months being able to like experience what the network what this podcast could have been like had we started it 2 years beforehand, 3 years beforehand. Because those first 5 months, yes, we knew that things were changing, but we were able to call a bulk of shows. If you go back and look at what we covered back then versus what we have to cover these days, it's so different. I mean, like you all said, you pulled me in as the superhero expert. When Superman and Lois ends, I'm out of a job technically then on this podcast. Like, what am I even here for? Am I joking? But like, yeah, I couldn't have imagined the fact that we there's some shows I never would have imagined that we talk about. Ride being one of them, and like, it's been such an experience so far to like call random shows that just aired on the CW that you never would have considered a CW show. But also, I haven't talked about teen dramas and supernatural dramas in so long, and being able to get to talk about those with you guys, like the Winchesters as well, that was so much fun as well. It's just wild because I remember, I think when this podcast started, we started covering things like the Winchesters, Gotham Knights, Walker Independence, when they were the ideas, when they were the pilots for the next season. We covered those shows all through the run, and now we rarely ever talk about them again because it's so long ago that they were dropped. And it's just like we saw shows come, we saw shows we saw shows go. And I think like that's been basically the journey of this podcast so far. We transitioned the CW of old out, called all of that, stuck with it through all of its transitions that we're now calling this new CW era. Even to, like I said, if we started this podcast 5 years ago, we might have reached bigger audiences because you would have had the likes of the Arrowverse in their head, maybe even the Vampire Diaries if we'd started that far back, Riverdale in its head. Whereas now it just feels like we're constantly calling history. And that's just like, that's wild to me. Like 2 years on, we're still calling history.
It's the way of the millennial to live through a bunch of crap.
It is. And what's funny about that is we did start, there was, I think, first few pod episodes, we had a segment called CW History.
We did.
Yeah.
Did not think that 2 years on, all of it would be history. Like everything that we had enjoyed. I can't remember, guys, when we did our upfronts live, did we get off that and then things were canceled that same day? Or was that a different pod episode?
Oh, that's a good question.
I don't know.
Um, I
What
feel
was that in May
it was May time, yes.
2022?
I know for a fact that Legends and Batwoman had been cancelled at that point because they were cancelled in the April because that was because of the Warner
Oh,
Brothers set issue. But
Mhm.
I don't remember if the like big purge of like the 8 shows in a row, whether that was before the live or I feel like it was after. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Maybe it was
The
before.
culling happened on a Thursday because I was in a meeting with Maddie, and once the first cancellation hit, or maybe it was did they announce All American was renewed that day
That was the
first?
early drop. Yeah, that
Yes.
came out about an hour or two beforehand.
Maybe it was the first cancellation. I remember I was talking to Maddie, and I was like, I need to. I was working on something, and I was like, I need to finish that post I'm writing because I know the day is not gonna go the way I wanted to. So I was like, I need to go.
I think that might have also been a day that I was off.
Oh
Um,
man, they
because
came for you.
there's this, you guys did an emergency call to plan out a
Yeah.
pod, and I wasn't there for that one. I think I might have been off and came into chaos. For one of the cancellations. I do know there was like a string of cancellations where I was on, and I was like, can we
It was
do
one at a
this?
time.
Like
Yeah.
East Coast time, not West Coast time? Like
Um,
I was leaving.
yeah, I remember that. I think the one you weren't there for, Sabrina, was the one where they announced all the renewals, and
Oh,
that
okay.
started the year off so strong. Because I remember me and Reed were on a call, and then he was like, "Shut up! They just announced the
Yeah, we
renewals," and I
had
was like,
planned a whole episode that we had to throw out.
"Yeah," and we were all excited about the fact that shows were renewed. The Flash was renewed, Riverdale was renewed, Kung Fu was renewed, Superman and Lois, that was
Oh,
renewed.
Nancy. And
Nancy
everyone was
was
But it's
surprised.
so it has to be so funny to go back because I know we talked about like what shows could be renewed and what shows would be canceled. I feel like all of our predictions were wrong. I'm on record saying that Superman and Lois was a lock for 6 seasons. Hilarious.
I mean, 4 out of 6 ain't bad. Yeah, I agree. And then that was when the renewals came in. We were positive for the rest of the year. I believe that was March. Batwoman at Legends cancellations followed the following month in May, April, and then May time came around and the rest were purged. Because I remember the three of us freaking out in that group chat, thinking Naomi was cancelled, and Reed literally DM'd because I get my push notifications. Reed literally DM'd, "I have a bad feeling about Dynasty guy," and as soon as he posted that, that was kicked off my phone screen and TV line. Dynasty cancelled after 5 seasons
It
came
was
down.
so that day trauma. It was just one after the other. It was
It
like we
was.
couldn't have just ripped the bandage off and done one post. It was one after the other every like
It
10
was.
minutes.
Yep.
And they
It
weren't
felt
all
very
like in
disrespectful.
sync. So like
No.
we'd see it from like one outlet and then we'd post it in like our group chats with the full team, be like, "Oh, Dynasty was canceled." And it's like, "Wait, what? I'm not seeing that anywhere." And then it was like 5 seconds later. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is
Yep.
hit deadline now.
And that was the thing. It was like y'all couldn't have given the exclusive to one outlet, so we all just knew where to go to wait for. At that point, it felt like sitting to watch the demise of the network.
Mhm.
We knew, and because it was like, are we? Everyone was. I think at that point we were going through the shows. Like, what do we miss? who still needs to be determined.
Yeah, and I remember there was like a cool like half hour until they canceled Legacies, and I was like, "Save
Yeah.
Legacies! We got one more, we can do it." And then it was like CW was like, No, sorry."
That's right, because everyone hoped that the death of the TVD universe would get a proper final send off, and it didn't. And then because there was such a gap between that and the other bulk, and a gap between All American Homecoming's renewal and the main purge, I remember sitting on edge for the rest of the working day, thinking Stargirl and Tom Swift are the only two that are left. Stargirl and Tom Swift are the only two that are left. And then we made it to the end of that day, and we're like, Stargirl and Tom Swift are the only two that are left. Fast forward 6 months, and both shows are cancelled. And
We
it's
had
like,
so much optimism that was
I
like
know.
misplaced.
I mean, to be fair, though, we were working on, the idea of the CW that it was, under Mark Pedowitz's like regime. So like the axe coming out, no one expected it. The axe continuing to swing,
It
no one
hurt.
expected it. It hurt a lot. I believe Twitter exploded. Like all the fandoms were just an outcrying of rage and despair. And then, I mean, CW's messages were like the mentions were a hot mess under every
Mhm.
post.
Disaster. I mean, we were used to like a random Tuesday night at 5 p.m. being like, the CW renewed every single show. And we're like, sweet.
yeah.
That was like 3 years in a row.
Oh, we had
It,
it so good.
we did, and now it's like they say ratings, but we'll see.
Hmm.
Because apparently we have moved past the financial reckoning for the shows. I don't quite feel like we have. I know that is what Brad has told us, but Brad, we've been going through a lot. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt. That way I can protect my heart. We all can. Except for
Um,
WildCards. I feel like if y'all cancel that for any reason, the DMs and messages are gonna be a mess. Not from us, we're respectful,
Hmm
but in general.
depends depends on how I feel that day.
uh,
Oh,
I feel like Wildcard seems like a good thing. It seems like we're heading in the right direction. It should, by all rights, get a renewal. It's arguably been the most consistent of the CW's new shows, and it's been the most joy for us to cover because it feels like even seeing fandoms pop up every now and again, it feels like a CW show of old, obviously with the flavour of a CW show of new. It's not just the CW's decision to make as well. It sounds like it was popular in its home neck of the woods in Canada as well. So fingers crossed it does. I'm holding on to this show because of all the stuff the new CW has commissioned or orchestrated. This feels the most CW-esque so far. So I hope we get to keep it around and not have to call more history. We've said when they did that original schedule with like Stargirl and was Tom Swift? No, Tom Swift earlier in the summer with like Stargirl and Wendy and the Winchesters all part of it. We said this is the start of the new CW era, but there was a lot of carryover from the old era as well. As we moved into the spring, we thought this is the start of the new CW era, but there was obviously a lot of carryover there too. Dare I say now, maybe as we
Yeah.
move through this season, this is the start of the new CW era. Because even though we still have a lot of carryover, when we get to the renewal period, they'll have more of their own content that they'll want to renew or cancel, and then there'll be the three remaining original shows that they'll either want to renew or cancel. There'll not be as big of a purge, I feel like, because they have to have found some form of a footing by then. So of course we'll continue to call it and see how it goes, but it does feel like this is the start of the next star era, and I'm just wondering how much more history we'll have to call in this um schedule, so to speak.
mm.
This is actually a great behind the scenes look of how the podcast came to be because it was conversations like this.
Yeah, very
Yes.
true.
It was like focused conversations that went to tangents.
Yeah.
It's very true. We were meant to be on this pod together,
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
for
Without a doubt.
sure. So I am glad, that in all of our nervousness when it came to the podcast, that we all said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Hmm.
We trauma bonded over what the CW did to us this year, these last years. We needed each other.
We did. We were going to be in each other's DMs anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This just gave us an
Mhm.
opportunity to vent about it publicly.
No, we were like, we want to get on a hot mic.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, moving into oh wait, actually, I do want to make some wishes for our second year. Um, I would like stability for the network, and um, I'll say it again, a WildCards renewal. But I think also I want more CW stars to come back to the CW in
Yeah.
vehicles that
Mhm.
really do their acting chops justice, the way that has happened for Vanessa. Now, granted, it's a Canadian show, but it did come stateside. So whether it's a Canadian show that comes stateside or it's a show that CW develops himself, y'all pitch to the stars we know and love, who have made the network what it is.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I love that. Yeah. We want good things for the CW. I think if you've watched our podcast, you'll know that. So I like the fact that we're using our birthday wish for to create more positive stuff for it because I've said it so many times. We love this network and we only want good things for it.
Mhm. I don't, do y'all have any wishes?
I would, yeah, I'm glad you asked because I was just thinking of one. I want them to develop their own comedies and not buy
Mm,
them. And I want, like you said, like a like a star that will be in the headlines that'll get people to watch. I think I'm ready for them to get into their comedy era again, but with their own um, language and tone and not just borrowing from other
mm.
countries. Not that those aren't like good, but I think they need to establish their own sense of humor.
Mm.
Yes.
So I want some half hours, maybe a multicam with a big-ish star. I don't care if it lasts for 6 episodes for you cancel it. I need some signs of life in the sitcom world.
Love that. I feel like that's the one thing the original CW never really got the chance to do properly. So who knows? Maybe this is next star's opportunity. I have two wishes. One is that I'm just going to be difficult with like more superhero shows. I know it's never going to happen, but like, you know what? You know why I'm here? I'm putting it out there. Who knows? Not every superhero show has to be expensive. I'll just say that. We said this
Mhm.
already, so
I
make it
want some
happen.
just like to piggyback off that, just some real like camp mess that is just a cult classic immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I want. We need to get
Mo
back to that. We need to circle back
yeah.
to like the 90s.
Mobilize the CW and WB fans that are still left. Um, and guess we're not talking about wildcards yet, but like one thing that watching the most recent episode of wildcards was reminded me as of how much I love network TV and how much popular it used to be. I would and like the CW produced some of those shows over the years, like the Riverdale in its heyday, The Flash in its heyday, The Vampire Diaries in its heyday. I want another show like that. It's rare we're going to get it on network TV these days, but I would love another show like that that just gets the whole, both the US TV world and the world in like a chokehold. I want a big television show that's so networky, so dramatic, so over the top that it becomes a phenomenon. And it would be awesome if the CW was able to find one of them because then it would remind people that the CW is still existing as a variation of what the CW once was. I think they've got it within them. I don't know if it'll happen in the next 5 years or whatever, or what even network TV will look like in the next 5 years, but wouldn't it be so cool to have one of the biggest shows on US TV on the CW again?
Yes. Um, it doesn't have to be a procedural though, y'all. I
No.
just really want to say that to the network one more time. It does not have to be a procedural. Study CBS, don't copy CBS.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
You got homework, CW.
I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
copy off your own homework from years ago.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
There's
You got
also a
it.
way like to get back into the teen world, but having that show appealed to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Even though I would argue, like, this isn't what the point of this segment or episode is, but I would argue that teen shows have an appeal or can have an appeal to an older audience. But I think there's a way like A Party of Five where it's like a teen drama, but it's a family drama, so it appeals to everybody. So I'm like, we should maybe figure out how to, make a U-turn and go back in that lane. Get off that
Yeah.
on-ramp.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
like they have the beginnings of that with Superman and Lois. It kind of brought that genre of TV back. Of course, we've got the superhero element in there, but like you've Parenthood, you've Friday Night Lights. That is that generation of shows that people would perhaps wrongly identify as teen dramas when they're primarily family dramas. There's a lot of teen drama in there, but they're primarily family dramas and they appeal to a
Like
wider audience.
Superman and Lois.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, exactly. And they've got the foundation there. Why not do another show like that? Um, if you want to make it slightly supernatural tinged, great. But if your budget won't allow for that, just do another straightforward family one. Get a big star in. Um,
Yeah.
like I'm sure that's what they're trying to do with Sullivan's Crossing, but like you got the foundations there without those two shows. Keep going there, and hopefully they'll find magic at some point. Because yeah, I bring back that genre of TV program, and I love those shows.
Fingers crossed. But that
Yeah,
is what we want for our second year in existence. Uh, and I mean, it's a lot, but I feel like the ball can get rolling
yeah.
on
Yeah,
a lot of it.
we're on the right track, I think.
Yes, especially because apparently, CW is developing a lot of shows secretly and with no news on what they are. So perhaps as we move further into the year,
Mm,
we'll get some news on that.
positive vibes.
Hmm. Going strongly into the future with some positivity,
Hmm. Definitely.
which isn't exactly what happened on Ride.
No, they were stressed about that rain. They were in full panic, and I'm like, blue skies. I'm not with you.
But Isabel was giving us her best sailor commentary about this storms. And I was like,
Hmm.
y'all know better than the rest of us. I don't live in flatland country. I love a meadow, I love a farm, but I'm not hanging out over there. Y'all know better. But at the same time, ma'am, I'm not sure.
They had me Googling in the middle of the episode, does hay dry? Because I was like, all of this for hay. Again, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a rancher. I don't, we're new to this. We're not true to this. So I'm like, I don't see the issue with the rain. And also, like, it rained for 10 minutes.
Mm.
Yes, it did.
We blew the budget on that house that Cash and Missy went to.
Yes.
I know when they were like teasing the storm episode, I thought it was going to be one of those big longer episodes where everyone's trapped in the barn during the storm. Wildfire's done one of them. Other shows in the genre has done one of them. I thought we were going
Part
to
of
spend more
Dixie did
time.
it.
Yeah, and it's good. That's good for excavating drama that's going on. And between the Tough and Valeria thing, there was plenty of drama that could have been excavated. But no, we decided to use the build up to the storm for that instead because, we're them two going back and forth throughout this episode.
They were, but I feel like it was so much better in this episode. And I think it's because we kind of got to a resolution. But I feel like the one thing I didn't like was Tuck getting blamed for searching out the fishiness with Valeria. I was like, but she does have a whole bunch of fake IDs. Why does he
I know.
have to
I'm like, she was
apologize?
so deeply hurt that he went through her stuff. Like that was the center. That's what she kept coming back to. And it was like, girl, I'm on his side. You can, you're not convincing me. I feel like that's also not the heart of the issue. So you're kind of deflecting of
Mhm.
what hurt a little bit. Cause I'm like, I don't know. Also, I was like, that conversation they had where he was like, you were my best friend. And then later, how long did they know each other for, Sabrina? Didn't you say they knew each other for a while?
I believe she went away at 16. I believe she landed on the ranch a little bit after that. So,
Because I'm
like,
like,
it's been a
how
long time.
you call her your best friend? Maybe I'm getting on Tuff's case about this, but he didn't know about her family life. And I guess that's all on her too. But if she wasn't ready to talk about it, she wasn't ready to talk about it. But it's been, I'm assuming, almost a decade. So I'm
Mm.
like,
Hmm.
she's your best friend. I don't know. I was like confused on that
Mm.
angle of him calling her his best friend because I'm like, I'm not seeing the full material here because you guys have been beefing the whole season.
I think some of that, though, might just be the ways in which people don't investigate other people's lives when they put a hard block. Your issue with the storyline there, it reminds me of my issue with the Way Home, another Hallmark show. But there's a scene in which it's very clear that Kat doesn't know that Elliot's doesn't have a good home life. She assumes he always takes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because that's what he likes. And I was like, no, his father just went on a shipping mission wherever he needs to go to get some fish, and he's going to be gone for a few days. His father only left behind peanut butter and jelly. Your parents know that he's not getting fed. You've assumed he just likes peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. We need to
Mhm.
ask more questions. That needs to
Mhm.
happen. So I'm assuming with Tough, perhaps he was asking questions as a teenager, and Valeria was like a brick wall. just like I don't want to talk about it, or
Hmm.
you know, my I don't have a mom, so I don't have a family, and he just left it at that.
And she was being very secret. The more we go on, the more we learn that she is being very secretive about her life, and not just now, but that she was back then as well. Because the conversation with Missy in the previous episode, it was like she implied that she didn't have a mother at all, and then of course with the flashback at the end, you find out that she did. And that she wasn't honest about the fact that maybe she came from a more rich lifestyle than she let anyone know. Maybe that's why she's being so hard on Gus because he doesn't know anything about this lifestyle either, and maybe she's trying to distance herself from that world. I don't know, but I'm glad y'all said that you saw things from Tuff's point of view. Honestly, I never doubted you. Let's be honest. Um, uh, but like, yeah, I think Sarah Garcia does a wonderful job as Valeria, so I really want to like the character more. But this episode, she was making it very difficult for me. Um, like when Tough, to be fair to him, he realized that he shouldn't have maybe. I don't think the issue here is that he went through her stuff because it was sitting there out in the open. She should not have left it there. He didn't know it was her stuff when he picked it up. I think the issue here is that he publicly had that conversation with her, but we don't want to talk about that because that's apparently not the issue that they want to talk about. He shouldn't have done that in public, but they only had him do that so that we could vilify Toff. Um, but the fact is, as soon as he realized what he did wrong, he tried to make things right irrespective of the fact that she still has been lying to them. Again, we don't want to talk about that. But he was like, we'll give it a shot when Isabel was like, we need to get this hen before the rain comes. Tough was being the good son, telling her exactly what she needed to hear. We'll give it a shot. And then Valeria interrupts, some things just can't be repaired. Eye roll emoji and walk away.
The
And
drama.
it's like, this woman who you also betrayed is desperately trying to get this hen, and all you want to talk about is you're making everything about this. Same as later on, and the fact that she did it in front of Isabel too, and the woman was stressing about getting the hen, and she wants to make it all about her when Tough wants to help. And then it's the same thing later on when Isabel returns to them, and Tough said like, "Oh, Valeria tried everything and she couldn't get it going." It was a compliment, and Valeria purposely took it the wrong way. And it's like, stop being dramatic for no reason. There's no cause for
Mm.
this. Um, yeah, my issue with her is we know she's lying. We know that she's still not being fully honest because there's that whole arc of whatever Austin asked her to do in the pilot episode, and she still hasn't revealed that to the family. That's why she's in with this weird man. Um, we know she's lying. So this offended attitude just ain't cutting it with me. I mean, if we didn't know she was lying, maybe we'd be on her side. But we do know she's lying. We do know that she has been lying since the pilot episode. We do know that she's been lying even before that. So the fact that she's getting offended that someone called her out on her lying just ain't cutting it with me. Again, love the actress, love the performance, love the character as a divisive person, but I cannot get on her side because of that.
Yeah, she's gaslighting, gatekeeping, girl bossing with the best of them.
Yep.
She is. I do think this is another time in which it would have made more sense had she not have spent so much of her life with the McMurrays. Had she
Hmm.
been like a ranch hand that they've known for some time, but not known for so long that she's basically um Isabel's adoptive daughter. You know, like had she only been on the range for like 1 to 2 years, a lot of her anger would have made sense because then it would have been like, I'm a private person. I don't ask you anything and you're in my stuff.
Hmm.
Or I don't have to share all this information with you. You don't need to know I have all these different IDs. I work for you and we're
Hmm.
friendly. And that's it. But that's not the energy. That's the energy is she's supposed to be Tough's best friend, even though that scene at the end for them is a bit weird because he acknowledges that in all the years that they've been friends, he doesn't know a lot about her. And it's like, well, how is she your best friend?
Yeah, it's confusing.
It just feels like then she would be your friend. Then I don't know how she would be your best friend, other than she's a real good listener, and she just I don't know, but she doesn't open up about herself though. I feel like that would cause a stall in their relationship at some point, you know.
Hmm.
She even has her guard up with Missy too.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to sound critical of the show. I'm critical of the character
Yeah.
Hmm.
as a
Um,
fan. I'm taking what for what it is, and I'm Mad at Valeria.
Yeah, I mean it's very successful on that front. I did like the scene outside when Tough finally got to tell her we were best friends, Val. You betrayed that trust because I needed you at a time and you weren't there. And I was like, yes, finally remind her what she did wrong. Because she's been on her not to use like country puns, but she's been on her high horse since the beginning of the episode or the beginning of the series, and it's just like I get the fact that you're annoyed that he went through your things, but you were having this high horse attitude since the very beginning of the season. And you're the one that ran away. You're the one that up and left your family at a time that they needed you the most. Like, can you not see that they should be annoyed with you? Like Isabel's heart of gold, that woman, she took her back in right away and cannot fault her for that. But that doesn't mean that Cash or that Missy and Tough have to react the same way. Don't get me wrong, Cash doesn't take things too seriously. He opened his arms for her, and that's fine. But Tough took it a little deeper than that. Missy took it a little deeper than that, although we're not telling that story as much these days anymore. And that's okay. It's okay for these people to be offended. So I did like the fact that Tough got to speak up for himself and then she actually dropped the whole offended facade and stopped and listened to him for a moment and that it set in on her because all season people have been saying things about Valeria to Tough and then we had to have that moment where it sets in on him and he's like, oh, maybe she's not so bad after all. And yeah, she's not so bad after all. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact is, she did wrong in this situation too, and she needs to understand why people feel that way around her. I think that scene between them outside before the one in the house where they realize that they don't know each other all that well. The one outside after they finished things for the day, and Tough told her what she needed to hear. It set in on her. It breathed for a moment. It made her realize that hold on a minute, I do have some wrongdoing in this situation. I think that was important because I think if we're going to like the character going forward and that she's going to grow as a person she needs to take responsibility for her involvement in the way things went and not just be angry at everyone else for questioning her.
Mm.
Yeah, that whole situation was giving like in middle school when your friend would be mad at you because you were mad at them. Did you guys ever go
Yeah.
through that?
Yeah, all
Like,
the
why are
time.
you mad at me? Because I'm mad at you. Now I have to apologize to you because you were me. Like it was constantly like kids are so weird, and that was what this whole situation was giving. It's like
Yeah.
I'm mad at you because you're mad at me.
Yep.
But I did appreciate though, even in that scene too, she realizes not only that, she needs to do better by Tough, but Gus as well. Like the whole
Yeah.
episode for her is set up to realize that like there are times when you were going to be wrong and that you were treating someone the way that you don't want to be treated. There was no reason for any of them really to
They
be
did it
pushing
again.
Gus. Yeah, because they assume a lot about him. It's like you don't know. He's just rich. You don't know anything else. He's
But
not.
he's
He's
helping you with that, whatever he did. He got messy. He got dirty. Let him have some ribs and coleslaw.
yeah.
Right.
Well, that and he shouldn't have to though be good at fixing the tractor in order to have some respect around there. Like
Yeah.
it just that part as like we now accept him because he he can really get down there and fix things. And
Was
he's
it
not
the,
just a
did he
trust fund
fix the
baby.
tractor that they said hadn't run for 10 years?
Yes.
hmm Yeah.
Which it took me out when they were like, old Bessie. What was it called? What they call it?
Oh, Tiny Dancer.
Tiny Dancer was, they were like, we haven't run it in 10 years. Why is it sitting out on the property? It's just been a lawn ornament for 10 years.
You're like a fossil. Yeah, I agree totally. We've said this before. None of the behavior towards Gus has been acceptable, but you can kind of, from a storyline standpoint, see Cash's issue there because he's jealous of the relationship with Missy. Doesn't justify his actions, but it justifies why the characters are behaving that way. We understand from a storyline standpoint why Cash is a thing against Gus. The Valeria one. No excuse for that. Again, we were already struggling with her, the way she was going on with Tough in that episode, and then when she randomly started taking out her aggression on Gus, no explanation for that. If it was so she would have her moment in the end. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. He's not so bad after all, and it was worth it in the end. But leave
Mhm.
that poor man alone.
Gus had my favorite line of writing, and I expect to be the entire series when he said, "You're barking up the wrong booker." I was like, "Oh, poetic device." I loved it.
Get them.
Yes, I think what's great about Gus to me is he kind of he's not necessarily a golden retriever, but he is a type of man who is like, look, I just like Missy. I want to help you out with the ranch. I just want to have a good time. I want to be kind. I want to be helpful. I don't know why you treat me like this, but he will continue on being himself, which I appreciate that as a character. What is I skipping to the end real quick with Cash. I agreed with Cash up until the fight because
What was Cash saying? What
so
led to the
his
fight?
his issue was that Missy had already said she didn't want to, socialize. She wanted to just be by herself. And Gus was getting up from the table to go talk to her. And Cass was like, yo, she just told you. She doesn't want to speak. And his mom, Isabel, says to him, Missy can tell him that. She's like, she did. And he's like
Hmm.
not listening. So like he tries to get him to stop. And then he goes, Isabel tells him about himself. So he goes to go, well, he's supposed to go apologize. What strikes the fight is he doesn't go apologize. He's like, I appreciate you for fixing the tractor and everything, but like, why are you here?
Hmm.
Like he does,
Hmm.
he's not, I was like, you don't appreciate that he fixed the tractor. You're jealous that he fixed the tractor. And you're jealous about Missy. And you want him to go away. And this is why we're fighting right now here in the rain. For
Hmm.
no real reason. It's just not, it's so unacceptable. What happened. Because tell Gus about himself in terms of listening to Missy, but you don't have to throw punches. But he threw a punch because what did Gus said something about how Missy's gonna stop babysitting him. That's what made Cass angry, and that's why he threw the first punch. And then he lost that fight, actually.
I don't know.
Um,
Me and Cash weren't getting along in this episode. I'll say
mm,
that much. I don't remember why, but I remember the vibe of him. Anytime he was on screen, I was like, dude, get a grip.
It was a
yeah.
complaint after complaint. That's the
Yeah,
issue.
he did not want to be there in that fancy house at that barbecue. Um, and then maybe he got a bit ahead of him. I did like that he proved himself to that horrid frontier jeans man. When he started talking about the way Cash was doing things, but Cash had a different perspective on it, and I think it kind of shut that man up. And then on top of that, speaking of lines, I really liked the fact that when Cash was at the barbecue, when don't get me wrong, Missy was doing being great there as being like a promoter herself. She was like PR woman 101. She knew how to sell that man. But like when Cash told the woman and the Frontier Jeans man, JB, I believe that's his name, but I'm just going to call him the horrid Frontier Jeans man. Um, when he told them that the way he works with the bull is that the bull is not his enemy. He's his dance partner. I was like, oh, Cash, get it. And they all like, oh, I'm going to write that down. I was like, yes, that he sold himself there. I thought Cash is a character who struggles to sell himself. And in this episode, he was not selling himself to audiences. You were like, Cash, come on now. Sold himself there. But then he got a little ahead of himself, telling him he's going to have this talent picked back up and learned within a week. I was like, are we maybe jumping the gun here? And then when he got home, it all fell apart from there. Um, he did good, but then he did bad again. But I think that's Cash in a nutshell for me.
It is a cash in a nutshell. I think what I liked about the this meetup that they're all doing to socialize and network and whatnot, is that Missy very much publicist.
Hmm.
Like she is fantastic at it. Even with him complaining and dragging his feet, she kept finding ways to spin it so that he looked good to JB Wooten. Even though, JB, I can't stand this man. But but I mean, she was working her hardest, and Cash only started getting there towards the end. And when he does make the comment about the bull being his dance partner, it's like, yes, see there, you can still be folksy, you can still be salt of the earth without complaining. Drink your champagne and go on. Like,
Yeah, he really sold himself well there.
mhm.
What was the that woman's name that Missy confronted?
I did
Oh,
not remember her
I don't remember
name.
her name, but I that scene when Missy was like, "I remember you." She's like, "Well, how did you know my husband?" And what took me out is when the mystery woman was like, "You don't want to know," and I was like, "She just asked."
If nobody
I want to
listened this
know.
I Oh, what's so I was like, ma'am, you are giving the vibes are obviously going to give cheating
She was so
because
obvious.
yes, she was like the stare at the hands when she
No
was
subtlety.
pulling cash to go see JB, and I was like, ma'am, leave the party then
It
if
was
it's that
so bold that
upsetting.
she was like, "How long have you two been together?" Like, what?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Imagine asking that to a widow and her brother-in-law. Like, both of them lost someone. Yeah, come on now.
And when she walked up, I was like, ma'am, we don't know you. The boldness to which you just placing your glass down, talking about how long you been together. Like, Do we know
It
their
was
name?
confrontational too, like an
And
Yeah.
accusation. It's like, what?
and not the way that it screams other woman. It's
Hmm.
Yeah.
just so loud, neon sign.
I was torn. I was like, I feel like it's in Austin's capability to cheat. I wouldn't put it past him, but I'm like, I couldn't decide if it was like so obvious neon sign that he cheated and if it was maybe a red herring.
Yeah, that's what I was
'Cause I
wondering.
don't know, like, would Hallmark do that? I don't know. I was trying to decide in my brain what the truth is, but it really tore Missy up because she face to face with that bull just
Mm.
Mhm.
had a breakdown in that pen, which I mean, good for her. Probably a long time coming.
But for Miss Ma'am, who does have like the attitude, I mean, she does a really good job throwing Missy off kilter. Like,
Hmm.
we were a boss. And then suddenly, like, the idea, the confrontation, which makes sense, that, I've been mourning this man that I love and that I miss, and he may have cheated on me. Like,
It's a
and she had
lot.
just told her mom in the previous episode, he didn't hurt me. He didn't break my heart. Well, now he may have. And she
Yeah.
can't even confront him. Now she's got to go yell at a bull.
That's what I was
Yeah.
going to say as well. Like last week, we were defending this man, and again, not the Austin Flan Club, never will be. But like last week, when the mother made that comparison about her father up and leaving, I was like, but Austin died. It's not the same thing. We were quick to run to his defense. And I was like, not this man potentially cheating on her. Like, I revoke all those comments if that's true. Um, yeah, it really threw her for a loop because you're right. She wasn't the main character of this episode. She was like the flawless support system, and then instantly all of that just fell away, and she just felt like the rug had been pulled out from under her. And you knew how that influenced Cash as well because he was worried that she was annoyed and that he didn't know his own brother as well. Yeah, it was some great dramatic moments there, but like, yeah, I do want to know because your woman's you don't want to know. It's definitely put a spotlight on it. I mean, like,
It's like, will
very,
she ask?
And we do
very,
want to know.
yeah, very much. We can't tell you this episode, so we're just going to say that.
I really did love that scene where she was yelling at the bull.
Hmm.
Um, it was great work by Tierra. It was really good. It was so multi-layered because you know that she's like, I'm mad at the bull because you killed this man because I hate you for killing him, but I'm yelling at you because he's not here because I'm mad at him, but I also miss it was like so multi-layered of being hurt by someone you love but is not there. I don't know. It was really good. It was really great work. Although I was like, I wish it was raining still.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It'd have been like, and maybe they just missed the window because they might have, and so they just had to go forward with with the direction they
But I feel
had.
like the rain was fake though. So I'm like,
Was it fake?
maybe
Well,
they
yeah,
didn't have
probably.
more budget for the water
It's possible.
because it
Or there might have been
ended
an issue with the
quick.
bull, having the bull out in the rain.
Oh, that's true. I'm hoping she wasn't staying that close to that bull, but
No, for the shots though. Like if
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
did,
yeah.
if they're like, no, we
We
can't
can't
have
dump
nothing.
water on a bull. I understand. Okay, I'm with them now.
But it was interesting though seeing Isabel in the Juliet balcony, just listening and watching this go
Mhm.
down. They always seem to, I do find it so interesting, because in some ways, Ride is about two widows.
Yeah.
One who is going through it right now, and one who has lived it for however old her boy is, like 20 something years. And so seeing the generational gap in that and watching her watch Missy, I'm like, Isabel was she at one point, maybe not yelling at bulls, but like having this scene, this very necessary scene for Missy of grief and anger and having nowhere for it to go. So now you've got to go yell at an animal who's
I was also worried about Misty too, so I was like, don't provoke this animal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was concerned for her safety. I knew nothing was going to happen because, like, that's not the point of the scene.
Well, she was emotional, but she was still smart because you see how close she was to the gate. She wasn't right up on the gate, but
Yeah.
she was in distance, and the bull was like over to the side. So she's like, I'm upset, but I'm not trying to die.
The bull though was
So
probably like, what now? Why am I in it? I was minding my business tonight.
Um, but I like that point about Isabel and Missy because we haven't really they've not shared an awful lot of scenes together, and yet every time they get together, there's like a wealth of history there that they used to get on so well, and that they're still there for each other, but that they also don't want each other's grief to impact over on the other. They've shared very little time together, so I hope this is maybe a chance for them to spend more time together because they do feel like they are the two leads of the show. Let's be honest. I know there's an awful lot of attention on Cash these days, but those two are the leads of the show. Um, so I hope they do get to spend some time and maybe bond over what they're going through, or that maybe Isabel can be there for Missy, because obviously Missy's still going through it. Maybe Isabel has answers for Missy. I don't know, but like, yeah, I said last week I wanted more screen time for Isabel. She did feel like she was more in the center this week, but she was also screaming a lot more about this rain, which presented a storyline for Cash or for Tough and Valeria. Of course, she had the stadium situation going on with that mayor man who shows up every few episodes with some strange ideas. But this is one that her husband Dusty wanted as well, and she wasn't sure whether she was going to do it. But yeah, that ended up being her emotional hook for the episode.
Yeah, she had
Mhm.
that D plot where they were talking about like a museum.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, for Mr. Mayor, I was like, but do you think you've been holding on to Dusty's writings for how many years? Did his widow not get those writings? I mean, I think for sometimes and with this show, the time gap makes you start questioning things because you held on to it for 20 years. You held on to her husband's writing for 20 years, did not say a word to her.
Wait, her
Why?
Hmm.
husband's name is Dusty McMurray.
Yes, but I
Yes.
can't remember if his name is actually
I
Dustin.
love these names. I want to have they explained Tuff's name?
They haven't.
Like,
I
is that a
wouldn't.
nickname? Is that his birth name? Is it short for something? I'm curious.
They have not explained his name. I would not be surprised if his name actually is just Tough. One of the things that I enjoy about like Western shows, whether it's Southern or we're moving more towards the Midwest or even the West, the names are always not, I don't want to say folksy, but it's like with Nashville, Scarlet and Gunner,
Mm.
Deacon.
I mean, Heart of Dixie, we had Lemon, Magnolia, we had all kinds of Southern Belle names going
It's
on.
so fun, for the names to be different. And I like that his name was Tough. If his name is just Tough and it's not a nickname, I buy
I
it.
like it. I just kind
Yeah,
of
Yeah.
want the history.
It fits him. He is
it
I
tough.
does.
like it. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. Through a lot of the episode, I was kind of like, tough baby, you don't need this. We can move to the city and like you can be a singer. You don't need to you don't need to be beefing with Valeria every day. Your life could be different.
I really do think Tough stays because of his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He very much is a mama's boy. I feel like if Isabel was like, I kind of want to sell the ranch, she'd be like, where do you want me to sign? Like, where do you want to sign? I will pack your bags, mama. We can go to the city.
Yeah, because it's like both of his brothers left in different ways, so
Mhm.
he's the one to stay.
Yeah, I do love their relationship. I do think she needs to be on his side more.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
But it's just they are so cute. I love that we open the episode with them. Um, with
The
the
high
end,
drama though with the rain in the beginning.
yes.
Yeah.
Hands
Uh,
on the hips looking out like, what are we
I
gonna do?
That's what makes it so great. It's
I
just
was like, we are like, it was just so serious about a rain that is not even like threatening to come yet. I loved it. It was camp.
yes. Well, the other thing is, so I forgot, and it was about the hay bales, and I was like, I thought we were going to be concerned about getting all the animals in time because they
Man,
have
the
a host of
hay,
sheep just out there. Where are we putting them?
the sheep had their episode. We're done with the
That's true.
sheep.
So now we're on the hay.
Yeah, the hay, which I'm like, my Google searches told me, and I didn't get too deep into it because I just wanted a quick answer. It takes 3 to 4 days for hay to dry. I don't know if it was like that big roll of hay. I didn't specify on Google, so maybe that. I'm like, what are we using the hay for? I don't know. I
Feeding
didn't
the sheep.
really.
Wait, no.
They
The
won't eat
stalls.
wet hay.
No,
Whatever.
but
I
they'll
don't
eat
know.
grass.
Well,
They don't eat hay. I'm sorry. I'm just misinforming.
I don't know. Anyway, well, I'm glad it all worked out for them in the
Yeah.
Yes, and
end.
now
They
we
got there.
we we moved on to the stadium,
Yep.
which I think, in some ways, I will learn Mr. Mayor's name again. I just don't remember it now. But for now, he's Mr. Mayor. He is right in the sense that you need to do something to save the ranch, and this could save the ranch. You have all this memorabilia now. As someone I don't know anything about bull riding, so I don't know how much of a draw we're gonna get for Dusty's memorabilia.
Hmm.
But they made a big deal about it, so perhaps he was king of bull riding.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm the one thing that's interesting me about that storyline is that it was this man Cody who has just shown up from last week. He seems to be getting on very well with Isabel, and that she seems to listen to whatever he has to say. Because this episode very much set Mr. Mayor up against Cody. Like every time Cody was standing there, Mr. Mayor showed up and was like, Cody, do you want to go over there? And he didn't like when Isabel was spending time with him. So I was like, is there a little bit of like jealousy over Isabel's affection going on here? Um,
Is
uh,
Cody James Tupper?
I don't know who
who's
that is.
who's
You're
James
like
Harper?
the man who was I don't know if this will ring the bell either. Emily's dad in Revenge.
Oh, I never watched, so I don't know.
Me
Do you know
neither.
what will tell
Okay,
me?
never
Google
mind.
will tell me. Let me just Google real quick.
He's
James
been in a
Tupper.
lot, but that's like he was in that medical drama that I loved called Mercy. What else was he in? I think it was him, right?
Yes, it is David Clark her
Yes.
father? Yes,
Yes.
that is him. That is
Okay.
him.
I'm not good with the supporting character names in the show.
No, absolutely not. Some it's like this man showed up in what episode 4 and suddenly felt like a main part of the show, and now he's there again. I thought it was quite ironic that Cody actually agreed with him in the end, and he was the one that was like, "Let your husband and your son help you save this place." And Isabel listened to him. Isabel obviously sees him as a voice of reason. I assume he's going to be a bit more important to the show, considering we had 2 episodes with him in it in a row, and he wasn't so much as mentioned before that. So yeah, it's that was an interesting dynamic, but I liked that Cody felt like a bit of an underdog in this episode because of the way that other man was treating him. So I'm glad that he was the one that ultimately made Isabel see that her family legacy could help her save the place that she loves. I like that.
I do think though that Mr. Mayor is married. Since this was a Hallmark original, I don't believe we're going there. Um,
Good, good. I
but
think we don't need that.
he's Dusty's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the issue is that Cody clearly likes Miss Isabel and
Mm-hmm.
would like to take her out on the town if she were open to that. He hasn't gotten to asking her that yet, but I think he would like to. I don't think Mr. Mayor likes that. I'm like, sir, it's been 20 years. If she wants to move forward, let her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. She deserves that.
She does. And Cody seems like a nice man.
He
Cody
does.
just wants to be helpful. He seems like he'd bring her flowers. He might have already brought her flowers. I can't remember.
He's
Um,
like another Gus. Why do they all hate these people?
I know. I don't get it.
They
Cody
act
might.
like these men have come onto this ranch and like started a wildfire and ran away.
Well, because it really is about like you're encroaching on our territory, and it's like y'all need to. It
We
can't
got
just be
acres upon acres.
right, and it can't just be the McMurrays plus Valeria. Okay,
Mm.
it needs to be. You need to let people in. Um, Going back to Valeria though, I told y'all it was gonna be messy. So like this is one of the reasons why I do not like their relationships, besides the fact that I don't feel like it was built adequately enough. He literally got into a fight over Missy.
Yeah.
But now we're having a moment together where
They
it's
almost kissed, right? Or they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They
yeah.
didn't kiss.
No, but it was like the tension was there. And she's like, "You are good enough." And I'm like, we just fought over Missy. Don't
Team
do
Yeah.
this.
Clark.
It was because she gave him a hug over how the conversation with Missy made him feel, and I knew when it was one of those hugs where the cheeks like brush off each other and then stop and lock. It's like don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, and then thankfully they didn't. But like, I think the reason I breathed easier during this episode is that them two were in completely different situations, storylines, all of whatever was going on last week was dropped. And now suddenly we're here again. There was no conversations over the fact that she lied or anything like that. We're just suddenly back to this Cash Valeria odd arc that it's not going anywhere for me. It came out of nowhere. Let it go back to nowhere. We don't need it.
Mm. It's the chemistry is there. No one is
Mm-hmm.
denying the chemistry. It's the awkward placement of this relationship development. It's not even, I remember when I first watched, I was sorting my feelings out. I was like, am I feeling this way because I want Cash and Missy? Or am I feeling this way because the writing is awkward, at least in terms of its placement? And I was like, no, it's the latter.
It's
Because
Mm-hmm.
kind of whiplash too, where it's like they kind of established this thing between Cash and Missy, and because they kind of decided to push that to the side, moving so quickly into this is kind of like, oh, kind of thought that was something we were building slowly, and then now it's Cash and Valeria. So it's kind of like whiplash, like
Mhm.
I don't know, it's in close quarters to each other.
Yes, and it doesn't need to be.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. We're
It
blowing
needed
through
to
too
be.
much like relationship story
Yeah.
too quickly.
Yes.
We're
Future
gonna
potential there.
if there's another season, which I mean it's canceled, so but if there were to be another season, we'd have to bring in new characters
Yeah, yeah. We've done too much.
because we can't just have him going back and forth between Missy and Valeria forever.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
No,
we
especially
could, but it just would be a little bit boring.
it would be, and it also feels like there's not enough history there for him and Valyria, at least in this season, that would justify a triangle of that sort.
Does Tough even know that Valeria and his brother have this thing?
No, I don't believe
Mm-mm.
so.
Because if I were him, I'd be kind of like, what the hell are we doing about that?
Well,
Just Cash and Tough barely like interact about anything like serious.
Really? Yeah, like
yes.
they haven't shared a single
They
scene
have
like
a like nice
memorable.
like rapport with each other
Hmm.
as brothers, but it's like we never see them like interact one on one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
Which is
Pilot maybe was the last time, was it?
which is weird because they're closer in age, I would assume, to each other, than Austin and Cash would have been. Um,
Hmm.
and with Cash being the middle child and Tough being the youngest, you would have thought they were closer, but we actually don't know the age gaps. So perhaps there is a bigger age gap than we've
Mm.
been led to believe. Because I don't know when Cash gives I left home at 18 to join the Marines.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It doesn't give I was on the farm into my early 20s and then decided to join the military.
It would make sense to me if Tough had like some resentment for Cash for leaving,
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
but I mean they haven't approached that storyline really, I don't
No.
think.
It does just feel like there are like three different separate storylines going on the ranch, and none of them are related to each other. So like I get it feels like a show 8 seasons in when they have to, oh, these are characters go there and this character, like the Chester and
Yeah, it
Allegra
seems
stuff on the
very
Flash,
like
disconnected.
established.
Yeah,
Hmm.
very disconnected from the rest of them. And like they all share scenes together. Like Isabel's party last week, the five of them or however many are involved in that story all got together and discussed it. All then went off their separate ways and back to their own storylines. And like you see these people more than once a day. Share a scene together once in a while. Come on now.
I know. Before we move to ride though, not ride to wild cards, um, I did want to tease the next episode only because I don't know if you caught during the fight that Cash hit his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And
He
Yeah.
what
hit his
does he
hand?
have? When he was fighting, he hit the pole very hard with his fist, and he's supposed to be ready for Denver in 2 weeks, I believe. That's going to be a problem as we
Mm-hmm.
move forward. Uh,
Oh, Cash.
I know. I talk about having, like you said, Michael, you see each other every day. He's going to feel that immensely when he realizes, hiding this is going to be difficult.
Bless his soul.
I think I leave it there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
just
gosh.
disappointment for Cash.
But what wasn't disappointing for me, it was wild cards. It was a fun ride to be on a set for the show in the golf carts, going about the routine and the dragging that they did to fandom, which I mean, excellent use of the explaining parasocial relationships.
Yeah, that was great.
That was great. I don't know if you felt hit while watching, reflection and change of behavior is what you need.
Hmm.
And if you didn't register that, hop back and run it again real quick.
Who would have thought a show like WildCards would be out here with all these analogies?
I know, right?
No.
They have something to say and they pepper it in subtly. But I did love the opening I love the way that this show opens its scenes where it starts in on the show within a show and then it
Yeah.
pans out to Max and Alice just seamlessly.
Hmm.
It was so clever. I love their openings. It's so good.
Yeah, it was. And I have to say, I want to credit the actor who played Indiana, I believe, because the whole show, the whole episode, we learned that he's a bad actor. And I did notice in that first scene, I was like, oh, this is some over the top campy acting here from him. So, I mean, like the actor understood the assignment and did a great job there.
I mean, Dead
And
of Night had a great cast. I would
it really
watch.
did. So would
Yeah, it
I.
did.
Absolutely. I really would have. And I know we were all going in on the Vampire Diaries there with the whole 8 seasons. I saw the cast posters that were, some of them were identical to the Vampire Diaries. The font was identical to the originals. I mean, this show within a show knew its audience and yeah, it understood the assignment.
It's so fun because you get to be in on the joke. And if like if you know, you know, if you don't, you don't. You might still enjoy the episode even if, you know, you've never watched a minute of Vampire Diaries. But like legitimately, this is sort of how shows are filmed, and how some of these shows go, when it comes to the balance of who can act and who cannot. And then even like behind the scenes drama. You know,
Mhm.
they all hate each other. But you know what? When the camera rolls, we're on scene. I love you desperately. You cannot leave you, even though I'm a cop and you're a vampire. That was also a
Yeah.
little cute nod to the fact that we're on a procedural.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I thought that was really nice. The fact that they said that the cast used to love each other so much in the first season, but it's work. They grew apart. But it kind of feels like they've come closer together now because it's the final season. We've watched TV shows for so long. You do see that.
Riverdale.
Yeah. I didn't want to say
Vanessa
it, but yeah.
walked on set that day with the script and was like, "This feels eerily familiar."
Even had to walk past Pops
Yeah. Oh
because
my.
he was on set.
I the jaw drop I had when I saw that. I thought that was nice. I also thought it was cool that the police procedure or the police precinct is actually the WildCards precinct. Because they actually had Vanessa go, this place looks familiar. They all look the same. I was like, and you could see offset where the actors obviously really walk off and all the like green stuff and the green screen in the background. I was like, do you remember Sabrina? There was an episode in season 8 of The Flash that did that where you could actually see the end of all the sets and everything because
Oh,
Barry was
yes.
filming on a fictional set.
Yes.
Again, we did that here. I always thought that's really clever when you can see the ends of the sets and the behind the scenes because it's supposed to be a set in the show. I mean, they took the fact you saw the external sets of all the other like the little area and the garden, the cul-de-sac where everyone gathers. Although that didn't look like it should exist in a show like Dead of Night. The graveyards, the fake tombstones. They went all out with this episode. They really did.
Did, and I think that's what makes it such great network TV. This is one of the things like we're always screaming about on the podcast, where like because we are in this era of like prestige or procedural or streaming television, people have forgotten the art of camp on network TV,
Mhm.
and they've forgotten how much joy there is to have a showrunner and a writing team who clearly love television and are referencing different famous television shows. I mean, beat from beat, like beat to beat, it's just a great episode. And a lot of it has to do with them taking us along for the ride.
Hmm.
Like, I think I'm, no, full shade. If you didn't enjoy it, that's fine. But if you don't enjoy these things, period, I feel like you don't like joy. Like you don't
Yeah.
like fun. I mean, I too am a girly who loves to cry, you know, on a like angst queen, wreck my soul while I'm watching television. But I also enjoy things like this. For me, Wednesday is the best night of the week because I have wild cards and then I have Abbott Elementary. I'm laughing the whole way
Oh
through.
God, I'm yeah. You brought it up, and it's gonna take everything in me not to pivot to just a full Abbott breakdown from last night. I won't do it. I won't do it. But I loved. I don't know if I'm jumping off of anything either of you said, but um, I loved it being set on that backlot because I didn't read the episode synopsis before I didn't know what we were in for. I didn't know it was taking place on a television show
Same.
set. So I just saw the photos and I was like, oh, this clearly a backlot if they're trying to make it look like a city. But that was like once I watched it, I was like, oh, they are on a backlot and they specifically didn't light it to make it look like a city. Because when you like Gilmore Girls, any show that uses a backlot for an outdoor exterior shot of a town or a city, they have to light it in a way that makes it look like a real city. And they did not do that here because it was just them in the back lot. And like you don't see that a lot to where it's
Mm-mm.
specifically made to look, you see the smoke and mirrors everywhere.
Hmm.
And I thought that was, and I don't even know, maybe they didn't even do that on purpose. Maybe it was just the way they got on set and they're like, we're just gonna go as normal. But if they did go that extra mile to make sure they didn't light it to look real, it was the perfect added touch of like a behind the scenes episode, which I love those kinds of episodes of shows where they go into like meta, they go into TV.
Hmm.
It's fun. Like Sabrina said, it's fun. We
Yes.
need to have fun.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There was
Ugh.
plenty of that to go around this week. Plenty. Now I was going to say at the start, but we started talking about sets and stuff. But generally, I really enjoyed this episode. It was probably the silliest of the season so far, and yet it still worked. We did say that this was when coming up, this felt like it would probably just be an adventure of the weekend. It kind of was, but they also did use that to progress Max's backstory a bit further, with her relationship with her mother, and we'll dive right into that. But like, it had fun in the moment, and I never sat and watched it thinking this is wasting time or anything. It was just got more and more and more outlandish, and that's the beauty of when you're writing for a show like this. You're like, oh yeah, this was the most popular show in the world, and such has 16 million followers because they were on a network TV show, and we know, unfortunately, in today's day and age, that's unlikely because network TV doesn't that popular anymore. But like,
But that did happen with Riverdale.
yeah, yeah, it
So they
really
were pulling
did.
from reference.
It did. And then of course Riverdale had the streaming bump as well. But like, we don't see that much anymore. This show just had such a good time, and it just wrote it got as extra as it did with each sentence. Dead of Night sounded like a hoot. You know, I would have watched that. Uh, the drama. I was living for the drama backstage, but I was also living for the over the top performances on screen. Yeah, I had so much fun with this episode. Like I said, there was they set aside a little seriousness for the important arc, but at the same time, it's just 95% camp, so 95% ridiculousness and hilarity, and I had a great time as a result. I don't want to break my streak of saying this might have been my favorite episode so far because it was just so good.
No, it was good. I like the episodes all being like very stylized and
Yeah.
specific. It's the stuff that I haven't really seen before in procedural, and maybe it's just because I don't watch as many procedurals. But I'll be honest, I once again I got lost in the plot of the case, which is no fault to the show. It's complete. I take full ownership of it every week that I don't follow the case. So I have no earthly idea exactly what was going on the set of that show and who the killer was and why. Because at one point I was like, "It's Ashley Green. They wouldn't waste Ashley Green. Like she killed them all. She's pissed and she's killing them all, and she's lying that she cares about the show. She's killing them all." I really had no basis other than the fact that it was Ashley Green. Um, and then I was on to the PA whose name was Eggs, right? She was a PA.
Hmm.
I was like, "Girl, you're up to something." And then at the end when they like unmasked everybody at the end, um, she was recording it. So I was kind of like, "What's that about?" I don't know.
Okay, so
But yeah, like
truthfully, I got
lay it
lost at
down
the
for
end
me.
too.
Oh no.
I do know what happened.
I
It
was like,
just took me a
Sabrina, explain
minute.
it to me.
I do know what happened, but I did get a little lost in the sauce for towards the end because I mixed up two of the girls. I mixed up the makeup artist and one of the actresses on the show.
Was it the makeup artist?
No, because that's her mom. They killed her mom. So what happened was a few days ago. Her mom likes going on walks, but she does it on the side of a street, so she always wears a yellow coat. But the four actors were in a car together. One of them hit her mom, and they left her there. And so they were covering up their crime, and they were the ones sending the letters, the threatening letters, because they were trying to make it seem like someone on set was going to be killing them. And it had the added
Oh.
benefit of being able to bring attention to themselves, up their follower count, and give them a means of having an alibi. And so the girl who's allergic to peanuts, she drank her own, she put that in there. Max, is his name Max? The arrogant one,
Hmm.
he did that to himself, with the makeup. And don't remember, I don't think the one with the large follower count who is trying to maintain that parasocial relationship, I don't think she did anything to herself.
Didn't
No,
that one
no.
Um,
guy die, or did I miss that he
Yeah,
they
believed she
killed
died?
him because he was going to tell the truth.
yeah. He was involved. I was watching it, and you know when you get used to watching something, you just pick things up maybe on a delayed response, like when you're reading a book, you don't really take the words in. I just heard one of the girls, and then I had to be the one to stab him, and that was disgusting, and the blood went out. I was like, what? I went back and I listened to it. It's like, did she say it came up in the most nonchalant way, in the most nonchalant conversation? Because someone was like, I poisoned myself, and the other one was like, well, I burnt myself. And then she's like, well, I had to stab someone. I was like, what? I went back and listened to it again. So yes, I believe that Indiana was felt guilty over the fact that they knocked this woman down and he wanted to be the one to tell, but the rest of them were like, the series is about to end, we're going to get away with it, we're going to go off and live our own lives, you cannot tell anyone. So they decided to kill him and take him out because he was actually the one that was going to be a human being and tell the truth, and they couldn't have that because they're all like self-absorbed actors. um so they killed him. That's that poor man's soul. um May he rest in peace. And Max figured it out because she heard the dash cam audio. Is that right? Um, and
Yes.
that's how she figured it out, because on the dash cam audio, they were supposed to have heard what the conversation that happened after they knocked the woman down, and because Indiana was the one that was saying, we can't do it, guys, we can't do it, guys, and like, you have to promise us. She figured out that he was the weak link in their bond, and that's why the weak link ended up dead. And so they set up the situation so that they would all admit it in public, and that's exactly what they did at the fake cemetery.
Once again, Max was like so funny. She killed me when she was like, "Let me just airdrop this to
Yeah.
myself."
Such a
I
serious
Like,
moment, eh?
I think that is a Twilight reference, though. Now that I'm thinking about it on top, I was talking about the episode. Eggs,
airdropping?
no, eggs. Scanning the script, taking pictures of the script. I believe is didn't Robert Pattinson scan his copy of Midnight Sun and put it online because he thought, or was it his copy of a Twilight script?
Oh,
No.
wow, no way, I didn't know that.
Um, because I'm pretty sure me trying to remember my Twilight fandom days, I think that happened and Stephanie Meyer was upset because it gave away. I want to say it was Midnight Sun. She decided she was
Yeah,
never
because
going to
didn't
release
she just
Midnight
like,
Sun
yeah, didn't she cancel the release? But it ended up being released, right?
later. I think like 10 years later, potentially. I think I don't know. I dropped out after Breaking Dawn, so I don't
Yeah, it was
remember.
like the four books were plenty for me.
Mm.
Hmm.
No, no offense, if that was your tea.
Yeah, I mean. Did they end up calling it not something else besides Midnight Sun? It's an Edward prequel. It's Twilight from Edward's point of view. So the hardcore fans would have been the ones to buy that book. Um, oh, what was I gonna say? But it's just I do like that. That's like also another nod to fandom. Eggs, instead of leaving this show after 7 years of not getting a pay raise and not getting promoted, instead just tries to use it to get followers. That is just
Why not, right?
and that's why she's filming. Oh, I also love that they gave us the Twilight, not Twilight, well, Twilight turn, yeah. For Ellis. Him standing in front of the expensive car with the light is giving Edward Cullen
Yep,
as he
Yeah,
looks at
when
the
he did
audience.
the arm thing with the sun,
yep.
Mm-hmm.
when they burned him,
I burned him
it
and then
was
he
giving.
flexed, which is which is very much what would happen.
It was
Um,
giving Edward, this is the skin of a killer, Bella.
And I love that the when Eggs was filming him and he was standing there in the car beaming the light and everything. Someone commented on the stream, "Who's the hunk?" Obviously reflecting him. Yeah,
it's
of course. Like,
just
get Alice the spotlight. Why not?
yes, I mean, this is why this show is so genius, is because clearly everyone behind the show is a student of television and pop culture,
Yep.
dedicated to the craft. Just truly, if you know what those scenes are, you enjoyed the episode even more.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
have a character and an actress who is game and understands the tone and
Mhm.
has been part of that too. So it like works on so many levels. Like she was part of a show that you can see it referenced. You can connect the dots between Riverdale and this episode in very vague but some obvious ways.
Core
And
four.
it's yeah,
Hmm.
it was very self-referential. I don't know, it was really great. And I loved, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but I love that the end of every episode is them on the boat.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Although I was like, last week was like such a moment, and then this was like so understated compared.
They just went
I
back.
wanted to know like what was the vibe like between them after that, because we kind of just like go right into this case, and there's no real like conversation about that, which I like in some ways because it's like reality. You just move forward. You're not always like, what are we? Um, But yeah, I was like, ugh, last week was a moment, and this was so just like normal and low key. And Mark was eaten up dead of night. He's a stan.
Well, what I love about the ending, and I did not rewind because I had to move on to Abbott Elementary. But I turned into a gooey mess, and it's because for me it's the layers. He opened Ellis in the previous episode opened up to her in the heart of his boat, and now we're back on the surface of the boat. But he's the one who later shares something that he enjoys with her, with
Oh,
the
yes.
softest voice. Like he watched it at night. And he was gonna watch another episode, but she was like, "No, I realized it didn't hold up." Which I mean, that's always heartbreaking when that happens, but it's true. And then she knows him well enough to know he was going to introduce her to a documentary
Yeah.
about it was a Discovery Channel documentary or
Oh, is that what
something.
Mark was eating up?
Yeah,
Okay.
because Alice
Because
calls
I too
him.
was like, it's Abbott. It's like I was on Abbott watch. They were really cutting it close to 9 o'clock.
Yes, but no, he goes in the softest voice imaginable. He goes, "Mark, come on, it's the one with the octopus."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like that's like almost like that's their habit that the two of them watch it together and that they were sharing it with Max. It was a lovely moment and the fake David Attenborough voice killed me. Which is just so good. And it's so Alice and that Max knew him so well. It's such an endearing scene. Silly scene, but so endearing and it's a lovely way to end the
He
episode.
also a small thing that I noticed is like he got wine on the boat for her.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like she's
Yes.
usually
yeah.
got a beer with him, but like she had a glass of wine, which it felt like I noticed it. I was like, oh, she's got wine this week.
Alice is falling slowly. He even had her
Yeah.
move over a little bit so they could put Mark in the middle. He's like, "You're in the seat." And so he just and she pets him. Also, as the camera's pulling out, you know I'm on ship watch. I'm down bad. Ellis was looking at Max
Yeah, I seen
watching
that.
the
Yeah,
program.
because right before that, you get the close up of Max looking at him, but you're right, when they pulled out, then he looked back at her. So, oh yeah, they're
I
threading the needle.
appreciated all of the
Yes.
close-ups on Mark though, because like
Yes.
he's the true star.
Yeah,
He's so excited to watch the one about the octopus.
He
he
looked
was.
once again like CGI, but like he's just a cute, funny looking little guy.
And that
Yes.
I said it before, but that cat is an actor.
Yes, he is. And held still for his little scritch. Like
Yeah,
that Max gave him. I mean, they need to put Mark up for awards. Give him the
yeah.
Emmy.
I mean, remember when we did our awards and I we gave Pretzel one? I feel
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Mark is great succession to Pretzel, holding down
Yeah,
the
Yes.
animal fort on the network.
yeah.
Yes.
It was a large pause to fill,
Very good.
but Mark
I'm
did it.
I mean, we did
Yes.
ask for that once. I'm pretty sure we're on record for saying that we missed the era of programming where there was like a detective or a hero and their animal best friend. WildCards doesn't lean into that an awful lot, but it's there. Hopefully, we get Mark more involved rather than just the final scene of each episode. But you know what? All of those final scenes are worth it.
I know. Oh, I know we're on the final scene, but I do want to skip back too because I feel like since we were talking about award worthy, again, I need someone to acknowledge Vanessa Morgan's acting. We took a funny, silly episode and gave her and her acting partner, the makeup artist, um, a long breath of being able to talk about grief. I was
Incredible.
hooked. I had felt a well of emotion. I was like, this is exactly what this show does amazingly. We find a way to be able to put an emotional beat in there that doesn't feel off. And the way
Hmm.
that Max got to talk about her, she talked about her mom the entire episode, but she often doesn't like expand. She had a whole um scene where she got to say, this is what's gonna happen. I'm gonna lay it out for you. But the
Hmm.
important part is that you need to let yourself feel sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you said the word breath because I literally wrote down, this is such a ridiculously fast-paced show, and yet the scene was totally allowed to breathe. It was slow, it was gentle, the music was different, the way that Vanessa just acted, it was completely different to what you'd expect from Max. It was very real, it was authentic, and now another show might have played one of those moments where she gets lost in her own speech for laughs. It's like, oh. don't know what happened to me there. The show did not do that. The show might be humorous, but it knows when to approach something with taste. And this was such a tasteful and powerful moment, and a bonding moment for a character of the week as well. You're right. The actress who played the makeup artist, again, a phenomenal performance there. The two of them bounced off each other so well. I think that was my favorite scene in the episode, and I'm just after rambling about how funny this episode was, but that was an incredible moment.
At this point, though, I don't need because it was so powerful. I'm like, Miss, you better be in the grave. Like I just like you like because it just feels more and more the more Max keeps talking about it. I was like, are you alive?
Yeah.
Did you have her
I don't
go
know.
through
We
all
might
this?
we might get the classic TV season finale where it's like, "Mom," and then cut to black.
Right? But she put her through so much. If
I
she's
know.
alive, because
But okay,
mm,
wait. Speaking of Max's parents, did you guys see the preview for next week?
yes,
George is
No.
sprung.
yeah,
No, that's finally this episode, is it? No way.
yes. But he's if I remember the synopsis correctly, he has to help with the case. That's why
Okay.
he's sprung.
Okay.
Uh,
But I was like,
and
he walked right out of those gates in that suit, and he was like, "I'm out."
he is like fully suited. He's like, I'm back to be a boss again. I'm out. Like, it's just
I
so
can't wait
great.
for that. Oh wow.
I can't wait to see his dynamic with Ellis on the like out in the world in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna
It's
be
gonna be
good.
funny as always, but Dad's probably gonna clock that Ellis has some feelings because it's
Hmm.
just he's
Hmm.
sitting in the kitchen when Max gets the phone call, and Ellis is like, Max, I need you. And I'm like, ooh, need her for what? I cannot wait. Every preview, I'm just like, it's gonna be another great episode.
Yep.
Yeah. No, yeah. I love this show, so I cannot believe we're approaching what episode 7 is it? Or
We only
is
have four
seven?
left.
Yeah.
7,
Bonkers.
8, 9, 10. Yeah.
I hate
Mhm.
it. But I also love the show.
I don't. If you're not watching WildCards and somehow you sat through this entire review, you should watch WildCards.
Yeah.
I mean, find a way.
Mhm.
We won't
It
tell.
should have been nominated for a People's Choice Award.
Mhm.
Mm,
Maybe it was too soon for it because it just happened, but I'm like, this is that kind of show.
hmm
Maybe next year.
Deserves that.
Maybe. It feels like the type of show that would have ran on CBS back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something about it that, or USA, but like it just feels, it really does feel like that. And I'm glad that it's on the CW. And I hope that, once it finishes its run, that wherever it lands on streaming, it gets a cult following and it has an even bigger audience with a season 2. Yes, I'm speaking season 2 in existence. You said you were
Yeah.
having your eye on it. Stop having the eye on it and just sign the check.
Do
Yeah.
it. Do it.
Yes. But I think that's it, right?
I think
Yeah.
so. I think we covered all bases. It was a great
Yeah,
episode.
Covered a lot.
It's
Hmm.
an amazing episode. And next week is going to be amazing too.
I'm ready for it.
Yes. But thank you guys for watching Where the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Reed.
Bye, y'all.